Welcome to This Is Your Time with ChaChanna podcast. I'm your host and Sunshine Soul Navigator, ChaChanna, and I'm also Reiki Master, Crystal Practitioner, Psychic, and Stellar Storyteller on a mission to embrace joy and happiness. On this podcast, I'm sharing a collage of my thoughts and musings, Reiki, personal stories, and more to not only entertain you, but to inspire and encourage you to discover what brings you joy. This podcast is your invitation to explore the pleasures of life. It's about taking the time to intentionally seek out and embrace those things that bring you joy. Because truly, this is your time to create, live, explore, and enjoy every moment of your life. So let's begin. In 2014, I went to my first storytelling show called Prosa Pie in Tarrytown, New York. I watched as people I've never met get on stage and share funny, serious, and vulnerable parts of themselves for an audience's entertainment and discernment. As an audience member, I was captivated, I was held in suspense, I was terrified, I was sad, I was mortified. I laughed until my belly hurt, and I thought, I want to do this. I was also a professional speaker at the time, and I knew that this storytelling thing would elevate my talks to the next level. So when Ivy Eisenberg, one half of the Prosa Pie storytelling series team, Zach Schusterman being the second, offered to give a class on storytelling, I was in. After that class, I cleaned up my story and submitted my bid to tell a story in an upcoming show. And 10 years ago, this month, I stepped on the stage with a swarm of bees trapped in my stomach and told my first story. And I fell in love. And I've never left the storytelling stage since. And I have been sharing stories all over Westchester County, New York, and in New York City, and parts of Connecticut, including telling a story for the Stamford Chamber of Commerce at their holiday party. I told the story of the Nutcracker, but revised it to make it as if it was my personal story. It's really good. And I might share it here on the podcast later on. Currently, I host an open mic storytelling show in partnership with Northeast Storytelling and the Westport Library. I always say library. I say library in Westport, Connecticut. And last year, I had the honor of being president of Northeast Storytelling, the premier storytelling organization serving the Northeast. I enjoy the storytelling world, and this year, my focus is to get on more stages in person and virtually. And I just want to make something perfectly clear. Storytelling is telling stories orally, not reading. For some reason, when I tell people I'm a storyteller, they envision me standing on a stage reading a book, and that ain't it. And I just don't understand how you hear teller and think read it. You know what? Anyway. So currently, I tell true personal stories on stages based on a theme with no notes. So when telling a story, you have a beginning, middle, and end. I think of an oral story as creating a movie in the mind of someone else. It's not just rambling on whatever comes to mind. There is thought into a format, the order, and those words are used so people can follow. And there are many genres in storytelling. There are tall tales, which are exaggerated story. There are folk tales. There are mythological stories, historical, many different types. The list does go on. And I do want to try my hand at a few different styles of storytelling. But I'm not sure. I don't know. I also want to come up with a one-woman show, but that's further along. First, I have to figure out what other types of storytelling I want to do. But I'm actually excited about it and being able to be free and open up and try different things within the genre. And when I figure it out, you'll be one of them amongst the first to know. In any event, what you are about to hear is a version of the first story I ever told. I have definitely worked on it as I've learned more and more about storytelling and developed my skills. I have advanced and enhanced this story so that it sounds even better. I mean, I'm really good, y'all. So, for your listening entertainment, here is the first story that I ever told on stage, My Magic Bag. Don't judge me. When I was 5 years old, I had a magic bag. It was pink with a shoulder strap. Hello Kitty was on the front. And there were these little purple bows that always reminded me of butterflies. Everything that I thought was cute, pretty, sparkly went into my magic bag. And I carried my magic bag everywhere, especially when my mother and I went to Caldors or Woolworths, because it was there that I replenished my magic bag. I was a little bit of a kleptomaniac. My favorite area in Woolworths was the fake flower section. Every time I walked in there, I felt like I was walking into a magic garden. There were yellow sunflowers, white geraniums, purple lilacs, red and pink roses. And I would just put my little grubby hands in the glass beads, the clear glass beads that people use to put into their vases to make them look pretty. I would play in those. And when my mother wasn't looking, I would take a few and put them in my magic bag, for later. Oftentimes, my mother would see me playing in my room with things that she did not remember buying me, which would cause her to go through my magic bag until one day I wasn't allowed to have a magic bag anymore, nor allowed to be left alone in rooms for any period of time. Lucky for me, not everyone knew this rule. Unfortunately for them, they had to learn the hard way. Growing up, I was surrounded by cousins and aunts. We lived in a large yellow multifamily home owned by my grandparents. On one side was my mother, me, and my stepfather. On the other side, on the top apartment, was my great aunt, and on the bottom was my mother's sister and my cousin. When I was 6 years old, one lovely summer day, I went over to go visit my great aunt. And while I was there, she left the room. And my eyes scanned the room and they landed on a collectible spoon case which had the most adorable, cute, shiny, sparkly, silvery spoons with red handles. And I thought, I must have one. So I took one and I put it in my back pocket. After spending a sufficient amount of time with my great aunt, I went downstairs to show my new spoon to my aunt and my cousin. So when I took out and brandished my spoon for appraisal, my cousin grabbed it out of my hands and started running around the apartment. And I started to panic because if he went outside, the heist was up. My aunt was suspicious of how I was behaving, and she asked me where I got the spoon from. I was suspicious of her suspicion, so I told her that I found it outside somewhere. But I could tell she wasn't buying it. So after I tackled my cousin and retrieved my bounty, I started walking towards the back door while she was walking to the front. So after I walked out the back door, I slipped around the house and hid behind the large hydrangea bushes that were next to the porch, where I could hear everything, but no one could see me. My mother was outside talking to my aunts and cousins, and I heard my aunt come out and ask, "You buy Sean Little Spoon?" My mother, knowing that I had a problem, immediately called out, "Shauna!" Ooh, I was going to be in trouble. But I reasoned only if they could find me. So I slipped from the side of the bush, went through the back door of our house, and slithered up the stairs to my bedroom and hid behind my bed. Downstairs, I heard my mother come in. "Shauna!" My aunt, "Shauna!" My stepfather, "Shauna!" Shauna did not answer. Then I heard my mother on the phone talking to my grandmother. "Shauna's missing. We can't find her." I tiptoed to my parents' bedroom, which overlooked the street, and saw family members walking up and down the street calling for me. I went back into my bedroom that overlooked the backyard and saw family members walking towards the stone wall that divided our property and the train tracks. This was getting worse. How was I going to get out of this? Finally, my mother came up the stairs, calling in desperation, "Shauna!" Eventually, someone was going to come into this room and I was going to be caught. But what if I acted like nothing happened? What if I just acted as if I just didn't hear them? So I walk out into the hallway as if she just called me for Sunday dinner. "Yes," I answered. My mother looked at me and wilted on the top stair like a rose deprived of water and cried into her hands. I felt awful. I just made my mother cry. I'm a bad girl. Out of nowhere, my stepfather appeared and silently guided me towards my bedroom and proceeded to give me a spanking. After which, I fell into the most glorious sleep, proving there is rest for the wicked. Now, I don't remember ever getting in trouble for stealing that spoon, nor did I ever admit that I did. But if you call my name, I will answer. I no longer go around taking things that don't belong to me because obviously I can't handle the pressure. And it took me 16 years before I ever had another magic bag. And that wraps up our episode. Thank you so much for listening. I do realize you have a choice, and I'm honored that you chose to spend your time with me. If you enjoyed this episode, and I'm going to say you did, please leave a review on your favorite podcast app. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Until next time, find the things that make you happy, whole, and joyful, and do more of that.